Hey, what's up guys? It's Mike from Cornfield Customs and welcome back to the Cornfield Customs channel. Today I have a bunch of low crown panels I need to shape on the power hammer behind me, so stick around as we whip up some 1932 sedan door skins. All right, as I mentioned, we have a bunch of low crown panel work to do today, and we're mainly going to focus on some 32 Ford sedan door skins I have to do. But with that, there's also a Model A roof insert over there on the table where we'll be in a minute. I also have a oversized 33-34 5-window insert, but let's talk about this 32 door skin. So here is the buck I made years ago, and we're gonna use this. Here's the skin blanks. I've already got them cut, labeled top, got our grid pattern laid out. But let's walk over to the table and we'll talk about some of the important information we need and how I like to keep track of a lot of this stuff. And I think tips like this will really help you guys out in the long term of being a craftsman and being efficient and repeatable. So let's look at how I kind of do that. And also here, this is the oversized 33-34 door skin. So what I like to do is I keep a journal, and it keeps all the information when I'm shaping panels. So here we have an early Ford sedan, Linux tool setups, anything that I make on a regular basis. So here's a 2829 Model A sedan door skin, back panel, coupe roof inserts. But what we're talking about today is a 32 sedan door skin. So it gives me the overall dimension of the blank I need to cut, basic grid pattern on there. We're gonna put half of a belt line in at the top, number 19 sweep from front to back, number 51 sweep from top to bottom. Standard 2-inch spacing grid with a central crown. That means all of our grids are 2 inches apart and the crown is directly in the middle of the skin. If I was working on something, say like a 35-36 roof insert where the crown is slightly towards the back of the roof, more so than in the center, that would be noted where that location is. And then come in here with our half belt line, Linux. It's the standard Ford half bead. Use top edge as grid, 4 to 6 passes, full depth. So I'm gonna take a second and talk about what I just talked about in our book here. I like to do it this way because then I don't have to pull the buck down, I don't have to measure it, and then add a little bit. All of my information is here in the book. So I just grab the book, flip it open, it tells me everything. It even tells me more stuff we haven't got to yet. But it's nice that it tells me what the spacing is, where the crown is, that the tooling's already made, all of this stuff, you know, that doesn't take a lot of brain power to remember, but over 20 years in business, I don't want to get the wrong tool mixed up or the wrong amount of passes because there's so many different variables for different parts. So to keep from me having to memorize all of that stuff and then make a mistake if I'm trying to recall that memory, I can just come to our book and it tells me everything. On some of the larger panels, it even tells me how many passes I should do before I start to exhaust myself. And that note comes in while I was shaping another panel. I pushed myself too hard and then I was sore for a few days. So don't be afraid to make notes on everything about tool setup, material, how you're feeling physically, what has to happen mentally. Make all these notes. That's gonna make the process easier. So let's get back to our notes. So we talked about our belt line, and then it comes to machine. So we're gonna use the MH37 HD hammer, and we're gonna use a flat upper with a 24-inch radius lower tool. That's gonna do 90% of our shape work. And then we're gonna set the stroke at 3.5 to 4, our RPM at 4 to 4.5, our tool gap at 1/4 inch. And then we're gonna start with 2 passes, full grid, check the buck, continue with 24-inch radius if needed. Last planish pass, 36 radius lower, turn stroke down to 2.5 to 3. And then check the buck as we go to ensure shape and fitment. So we're gonna do the majority of our shaping work with a 24-inch radius just to build the shape a little bit faster on this 18-gauge cold roll steel. We could do it with a 36, but it's gonna take a lot longer. The 24 won't give us any aggressive tooling marks, so we're gonna do the 24 to be more efficient, put the majority of the shape in it, and then our last pass or two, we're gonna come in with the 36, turn that down a little bit, and use the hammer as a planishing hammer just to take out any waves or ripples that we may have gotten during our initial shaping process. So there's all of our information in the book. So then we can grab our book, We can walk right over to the hammer. Flat top upper, 24-inch radius. Flat top upper, 24-inch radius. I have our RPM at 4. And here I have our stroke at 3.5 to 4, so we're right at 3 3/4. Easy as that. You just grab the book, all your settings are here, everything you need to know. Our grid pattern is all laid out, just like it is in our book. It doesn't save a lot of time. I mean, it's not like it's saving hours and hours and hours, but over the long term, it can save 10 minutes here, 10 minutes there, all of these things that really compound and make you more efficient and a better craftsman, because you're not wasting time trying to remember or relearning the steps because you've already documented what has worked in the past. And that goes back into, if we're moving, move with purpose. Everything is noted in the book. We're following our own instructions, so we have a game plan, we have our roadmap, everything we know is gonna work is there. And we're gonna aim small, miss small, everything is in the book. So we're gonna reduce our margin of error by taking out any of the guesswork, just sticking to what we know has worked in the past. That makes it more repeatable, makes you more efficient, and just makes things better all around. So don't be afraid to take notes. I think taking notes is really handy, and I've been preaching this for years. I've had that book for a long time. It's got tons of stuff in it that just really helps streamline the work in the shop. So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna turn the machine on, grab our panel. I'm gonna have my earmuffs on, my gloves. We're gonna put a little bit of panel lubricant on the panel so it glides through the dies as I'm shaping. And that panel lubricant is 50-50 mix of ATF and mineral spirits. And you guys may have seen it in other videos, but I put it in these little Just Right plunger cans, and then I take a wax applicator pad, and that sits in the top. So when you push down, the panel lube comes to the top, saturates this, and I just wipe it on the panel. And it just makes it kind of glide through the tooling a little bit better. If you don't run a panel lubricant when you're doing low crown stuff, it tends to feel a little gummy and it gets hung up on the die, and you want that just to glide right through. Nice even strokes. You don't want to get hung up because that could put an overstretch or a smiley face in your panel. So that's what we're going to do. It's not going to be the most exciting thing ever because it's just a ton of power hammer work. But we'll put the initial shape in, we'll just go ahead and do the 2 passes because that's what the instructions say, and then we'll check it to the buck. So after we do the buck, if we need a little bit more, just like the book says, we can continue on with the 24-inch radius. If we're pretty close, we'll do a last planish pass just to smooth everything out. And once we get that fitting to the buck, we'll come over to the Linux. I've already got it set up. So this is our Linux Metal Master. I've got our long straight guide fence in here. And then this is our Ford half-round profile for the 32 lower belt line. So then we'll come over and we will put that half profile in using our notes as our guide, 4 to 6 passes, so we don't get any tooling marks in there. So that's the game plan. It's all laid out in the book. No guesswork. We just do what the book says, and we should have a good part. So let me get the tripod set up, hammer turned on, and we will get to shaping. One thing I do want to mention. A lot of people have mentioned in other videos on this low crown stuff like doors and roof inserts, why don't I use a wheeling machine? Why do I always have to use the big noisy power hammer? There's a couple reasons. For me, the power hammer is more efficient, it's faster. I can do larger panels by myself. Like let's say the door skins are small, I could probably wrestle around and do these on the wheel by myself. Wouldn't be super comfortable, it'd be kind of awkward. But this roof insert, I can do this on the power hammer with radial stretch by myself. If I did that on the wheeling machine, I'd have to have a partner here. So then I would be paying someone to hold the other end, and then it'd just take a lot longer. We're both getting tired, wheeling that thing out. It's a lot of movement, pushing and pulling through the wheeling machine. So I'd much rather just power hammer it. I understand the power hammer better. I understand shrinking, radial stretch, all of that stuff and how it works on the hammer, more so than all the wheeling principles. So I stick to what I'm better at, what makes more sense in my brain. And I used to be a wheel guy. I wheeled all my panels before I had a power hammer. And then when I got my first hammer, everything changed. I was more efficient. I could work faster, I could do larger panels, I could do larger panels by myself. So power hammers aren't for everybody. That's why there are wheeling machines. A lot goes into the way your brain interprets and processes information. There's a lot of guys that are amazing on the wheel, and then there's a lot of guys that are amazing on the power hammer. It's different strokes for different folks. It's just like art. Some people paint with watercolor, some people paint with oil base, some people are charcoal. It doesn't matter. Whatever works with you and gets the best product that you can do is the route you need to take. So don't get too wrapped up into why am I not wheeling it, or why am I power hammering it, or it could be better this way. It doesn't matter. Do what works best for you, and for me, running the power hammer is what makes more sense, and I feel that I'm way more efficient at. So enough babbling on, because I know how you guys like it when I just ramble on about nonsense. So let's get this show on the road and get to shaping these door skins. That is one pass down across all of the grid, and I want to talk a little bit about that. So with the grid, I start in the center and I work all the way across our center grid from top to bottom and back up, and then I jump out to our one grid and I work all the way across, repeating that process, and then I do that working my way out. So by the time I get to grid number 5, the center has been gone over 6 times, while the edge has just gone over once. That allows us to build compound shape faster, especially with the main focus point, or the highest point of our crown being right here in the center. That's how we're going to build that shape really quick, because you're always going to need more stretch in the center of a low crown panel than you will at the edges, and that's how you get that nice uniform low crown shape. So by gridding it out this way and working from the center out, we're going to build that exponentially instead of just washing the whole panel once and then just keep repeating that process to slowly bring that center up. And with that in mind, when I get to the edge, you'll notice I'm just not running the hammer wide open and just stopping at that line. When I get here at the edge, I let off the pedal, which slows the beats per minute down, and it kind of feathers that hit off of the edge. That way I'm not getting a hard stretch line. I'm blending out my starts and stops. So that helps make the panel more uniform. And then when I got out here to the edge, even at grid 5, I'm staying about 3/4 of an inch away from the edge. Leaving that perimeter alone is going to help build that shape. It kind of locks that in. If you just keep running off the edge, it's going to let some of that shape go. And that's what I've talked about in previous videos, where if we were to overshape this skin, we could work from the outside in, letting that shape go, and it'll bring the center back down. So we want to stay away from the edge itself by about 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch to help lock the shape in as we go. When we turn the hammer down towards the end and do our final planishing, we can wash off of that edge a little bit, but you just don't want to get too carried away and again let that shape go. So I'm getting a little hot running the hammer with this panel, so I'm going to take my hoodie off, and I'll probably change the angle of the camera so you guys can see a little bit different, and I will do the second pass, and then we will check it to the buck. So 2 passes in, it's on the buck, and it doesn't fit quite right. Here is pretty decent. We're touching at our edges there, but here we have a gap. And if we push down on it here, it kind of pops up. And I've covered this in another video where a viewer was having a hard time getting this to go away. And what that is it doesn't lay completely flat and it wants to flop like this, because essentially there's too much material on the edges. To get that to kind of tighten up a little bit, we just need to stretch here in the center more. As this comes up, it'll push those edges down, and that'll take that looseness out, drop the edges over, and allow everything to fit. So we're going to try to drop the link to that video where I took a panel that did the same thing and corrected it. You can watch that more in depth with a better explanation on this exact issue. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead, continue power hammering. This is, like I said, this is after 2 passes, so we're going to go back. We'll do another pass, test it, and then move forward as need be. And the book said start at 2 passes. That could be just the difference in the mill run. It could have a little bit more carbon in it. It could be a little bit springier. There are a lot of variables that go into that. That's why I put in the notes that we're going to do 2 passes, check it, and then adjust from there as need be. That way I don't put in 4 passes and on the next set I get something that has a lower carbon content or is less springy and I overstretch it. It's always better to err on the safe side than have to undo work you've already done. I've mentioned it in multiple videos that shaping is a lot harder to do and undo versus like a form. So if we can eliminate having to overstretch the panel just to relax the edges out, that'll save us a lot of time. So I'm gonna margin on the error of safety, do 2 passes, which we did. It needs a little bit more. And then I'll grab the sweeps on the next set and we'll start to check everything. So I'm gonna get back to hammering. We'll do another pass and see how it looks from there. All right, after our other pass, you can see that this pulled down pretty good. It's still got a little bit of looseness here in the edge, but it fits good here and here. When I push on that, it's up at the top. I'm not gonna focus on that a whole lot because if this is loose, when we put our bead profile in, it'll tighten that last little bit up. So I'm not gonna super focus on that at this point. But what we need to do next is I'm gonna check it with sweeps, both directions. So we have a number 19 sweep from front to back and a number 51 sweep from top to bottom. I'm gonna check those and I can make a mark in the oil with my finger if there's a low spot or something that needs corrected. And then I'm gonna change the tooling out from a 24-inch radius lower up to a 36-inch radius lower, and that'll be our final planishing passes. There's not a lot of major shape work left. It's just gonna be nitpicking a few minor imperfections, and if we find anything that's low, it might tighten this edge up a little bit, and we'll work that as a unit. And once we get all the imperfections that we don't like, that we find with sweeps corrected, we can go ahead and put that body line in the top. So we'll grab our sweeps. Actually, I'm gonna oil the panel again first, and that'll just help get rid of like all these fingerprints. And then if I mark in the oil something we need fixed, we're not gonna go over it when we lubricate the panel. So that's lubricated. And here we have a number 19 sweep. So we'll put it at one edge and we'll bring it across the panel and see where we can see daylight through. So there's like a little bit of a diamond pattern here where I can see daylight through it. So as this comes up, it'll most likely tighten that edge anyway. And we'll do that with a 36 radius lower. And we'll do the same thing here. So here, there's a little bit of a low spot kind of right there. And this low spot, I mean, it's maybe a 32nd of an inch. It's not a lot. Just, you can see a little bit of daylight through it, more so than elsewhere. So these are gonna be our two areas that we're gonna raise up, and then we'll put it back on the buck, check it with sweeps, and make sure that's coming up. But we are going to switch the tooling out, put the 36-inch radius lower in, and do it that way. So let's get this changed, these areas brought up, and then we can keep moving forward on these skins. We're going to turn our stroke down just a little bit. I bumped it up and move a couple stubborn spots, so we'll turn it down just a little bit, and we'll work those two areas and wash out into the rest of the panel. We did our planish pass, and it still has a little bit of looseness in that top edge there. Again, like I said, I'm not super worried about it because it should get tightened out when we put that bead profile in. And I mean, it's so close. I might hit it one more time just to be sure, but let's check and see what it looks like with our sweeps. Our sweeps look pretty good. There's still a little bit of low here, so I am going to correct that. So our 19 looks pretty good, and our 51, it looks a lot better. It's still a little low just right there. So compared to what it was last time, that shape is coming up. So I'm going to hit this on the hammer one more time just to bring these two areas up, and then I think we'll be ready for the bead profile. So one more time hammering, and then we'll beat it. I'm gonna hold the panel 90 degrees. Just, it's gonna be a little bit easier to hold to my body working over there, and I'm gonna go pulling this one out. So I'm here at the Linux, which is the next step in this door skin, and I have our half round tooling that I made years ago. It's just made out of 1018 mild steel, no heat treat, none of that stuff, because it's such a low production tool that it's never gonna get destroyed or beat up. And the way that a Pullmax or a Linux works, we're not actually hammering, we're just shoving down. It's like a bead roller, but instead of in a rotational manner, it's just pressing straight down. So these dies are probably 10 years old. There's really no signs of wear or tear on them. I just polish them up every once in a while. We have them set up. I have our straight back fence all lined up. We're going to adjust the tool down, and we're gonna do this over 4 to 6 depth increments. So we'll make our first initial line, and then I'll turn this handle up here at the bottom. That'll raise our lower tool up. We'll do that a little bit at a time, about 1/2 to 3/4 of a turn on this adjuster until we get the tool about bottomed out. And that'll get us in the ballpark of where we need to be. And it'll be a nice, crisp, detailed line. So I'm gonna lubricate the panel and the dies a little bit right where we're gonna be working, just so everything moves nice and smooth through the tooling. And we'll do this, we'll clean everything off, and I'll show you guys how it looks. So let's get to putting the bead in here. Just have some rubbing alcohol on a towel here, and we'll use that to clean off the panel lubricant and the leftover Sharpie marks. Man, I tell you what, it found every cut in my hand. Whew. So we'll wipe all of that off. See if there's any blemishes in it. And remember how before it was kind of teetery? Now that I put that bead profile in there, it tightened it up just like I thought it would have. If it wouldn't have, I could have came back with our kick shrinker and just lightly tightened this edge up, and that would have gotten rid of it. But everything seems to fit good. The shape looks good. I'll pull our sweeps out. That shouldn't have changed much. The sweep looks good. With the 19 and then the 51, we'll have to line that up here. There might be a little bit of a low spot here in the middle, but I can't really see it or feel it. And if it is, it's just ever so slight. I think it's okay, because like I said, the light isn't really being affected, and it looks pretty good. It's less than a 30-second if there's much there. So it's one of those things, do I sweat it and put it back in the hammer and risk going over after I put this bead profile in there? Or is a little bit of high build primer gonna take it up? Because the client, when they get it, they're still gonna have to turn the edges and hem it to the door frame. So it's still gonna need body worked and primed, and I think about a 30-second or less is acceptable, especially when it fits nice to the buck the way it does. So I'm gonna call this one good. The only thing we have to do to this one before I package them up and ship them out is I go over everything with a DA with a Scotch-Brite pad on it, just to even the texture out and get any, it's not even really a tooling mark, but you'll see a texture from hammering it. I'll do a pan over at the end and you might see it, but just so the surface finish is nice and even in a red Scotch-Brite, and then it will be ready to ship off to the client. So I'm gonna call this skin good other than the Scotch-Brite, but I have to get back to it and do another skin, so we have a left and a right, so I can get this pair shipped out. So I'm gonna call this video a wrap. So thank you guys so much for checking out this video. I don't think I've done one on door skins before, so I figured this would be a good little topic. It's not a super long video, but it's informative on how low crown door skins are made. I've done a bunch on roof inserts, so I'm not gonna do the Model A roof insert or the 3334 because I've already got a bunch of those out. So thank you guys so much for checking it out. Hopefully it was informative to show a little bit more of the in-depth step-by-step and kind of how this process proceeds, and we grow that exponential compound shape here in the center, put the bead profile in, and end up with a door skin ready to ship out for a 32 sedan. So drop down in the comment section, let me know what you guys think, share to a friend, email to a friend, anything you can do to help get us in front of a larger audience so this channel can continue to grow. The more the channel grows, the more time I will be able to dedicate to videos to get to you guys. Eventually I'd like to get it to where we're doing multiple long format videos a week, but right now all I can swing is one, sometimes none, but I always try to get at least one longer format video out to you guys a week. So share as much as you can, comment, like, anything to help the algorithms take our channel into account. And thank you to our members, thank you to all the subscribers, and thanks to all you new viewers, and hopefully you hit that subscribe button. And again, I can't say thank you enough, but thanks a lot guys, and we will catch you on the next one.